Hey, beauty pros, welcome to Beauty Business Breakthroughs. My name is Shara, your guide to success in the beauty industry. In each episode, I'm going to be sharing my tips, tricks, and real life experiences. Plus, we'll bring in industry experts to drop their game-changing advice. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, get ready for practical insights that will elevate your beauty business. Let's dive in. On Beauty Business Breakthroughs, I am going to be discussing consent forms and the 5 must-haves that you should be including in your consent forms. Now, keep in mind, you can either put them all into one consent form, or I would recommend breaking some of these things out. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. The goal for today is going to be keeping your beauty biz and clients protected. Again, 5 must-haves for your consent forms. So the first thing that I am going to recommend that you make sure that you include in your consent forms is going to be personal information, right? That's kind of the obvious. So you want to make sure that you have their name, address, date of birth, phone number, all of the key information, right? Maybe you're going to have them provide their contact details, email address, phone number, again, right? You want to make sure that you can contact them if you have any questions. Usually this information is already gathered when they are booking an appointment, especially if they're booking through your booking link. However, if you don't have a booking link and maybe you are just booking with people through DM or phone calls or things of that nature, then it's really important that you make sure that your consent forms, include all of this information. The other reason that you want to make sure that this information is included is because when your client is filling out this consent form, we want to know, who does this consent form belong to? Who is giving us consent, right? And again, you want to make sure that you have the ability to go ahead and contact them should you need to. Another good thing to include when it pertains to the personal information is medical information. We want to know about their history. We want to know about their medical background, especially with some of these services that you are providing your clients. It is imperative that we get a clear understanding on what their medical history entails, because there are contraindications, right? Or things that we want to make sure that maybe we can still perform the service, but we want to make sure that we are treating them in a specific way or being mindful. One example of that would be with the hyaluron pen. So with the hyaluron pen, if somebody has herpes of the mouth, right, getting the hyaluron pen treatment can actually aggravate and cause them to have a breakout. So we need to know whether you have herpes. Not that we can't treat it, but it is recommended that you do one of 2 things. One, you're going to go ahead and take your required medication prior to the treatment as well as after the treatment, or you're taking some kind of vitamin, something along those lines. So again, knowing somebody's medical history is extremely important when you're providing these services so that you can make sure that you are performing the treatments properly. But say, for instance, it's a treatment where diabetes or cancer or high blood pressure or whatever, right? That is a red flag and you can't treat them if they had that. It's imperative for you to not only protect the client, because especially if this is a service that will cause them problems or, counteracts the services that you're providing, something along those lines, you want to make sure that you are fully aware before you're providing service. So not only are you protecting your client, you are also protecting your business. So these consent forms are protecting both of you, right? And you want to make sure that when you are creating these consent forms, that is what they are designed for. Not only protection, but it is a clear, drawn out, almost like a contract. you are contracting with the client and saying, hey, this is a service that I'm providing for you. This is the information that you are providing to me. And based on the information that you're providing to me and the service that I'm going to provide to you, I feel confident that you are a good candidate, right? So again, this is in pertaining to the consent forms. And again, 5 must-haves that I am recommending that you make sure to include when you are developing your consent forms. So consent forms, they can come in several different forms. Again, you can have one consent form with all of the information. You can have several different consent forms, but I am just going over the 5 key things that I think you need to make sure and include. The second thing that I am going to mention and kind of drive home is the treatment details, right? So we want a clear indication of what exactly is the service or the treatment that you are providing for this client. So just a simple body consulting, like, no, we need to be a little bit more specific. Like, I am providing cavitation on the lower abdomen, or I am providing radio frequency on the mommy pooch, like whatever, however you want to, break it down. Like, we really want to get nitty gritty and be detailed when it comes to describing the treatment and what the details are. Again, because the whole goal here is to protect not only the client, but also to protect your business. So if the client comes back, which, knock on wood, thank you, Jesus, I had consent forms. I was very, very adamant about having consent forms and having my clients fill them out. And luckily, I never had a problem. I never had, any issues with suing or any of that kind of stuff. But that is what these consent forms are designed for. So I know we've all gone to a doctor. We've all gone to some type of specialist or whatever. When you go to a facility, the dentist, I think when you go to an esthetician or a hairstylist, or I think I even fill something out when I go get my lashes done for the first time, whatever the case is, like, it is very much industry standard to fill out a consent form and to make sure that, the medical history, the consent, the treatment, and all of those things are included in these consent forms. So again, the key here is for you to make sure that you are detailing out what the treatment is that you are providing for your client, right? The third piece is kind of the obvious. It's a consent form, right? So of course, we're going to have consent to treat. We want to have that language, and that language is usually like 1 or 2 sentences saying, I consent to treat. You want to make sure that that is included, and this client is giving you consent to perform said treatment from my number 2, right? So number 1 was personal information. Number 2 was treatment details. Number 3 is going to be consent to treat. All right. So in regards to number 4, that's going to be a liability waiver. Again, this is making sure that we are protecting not only ourselves and the business, but we are including a liability waiver. So making sure that they are not going to hold us responsible should there be an issue. Again, as long as you're performing treatments properly and as indicated, as you've learned, you've made sure to get the proper education, you have a clear understanding of their medical history and their background, all of those things, liability is not going to come into play. However, we still want to make sure that we are covering ourselves, right? What do they say? CYA. Okay. Like I said, it's just important. You sleep a whole lot better at night knowing that you have done your due diligence and made sure that your consent forms include everything that they should, so that if something did happen, you are protected, right? Nothing is worse than, I'm just imagining, because again, I've never had this situation occur, but nothing would be worse than having a problem with a client, or they had an allergic reaction, or, you didn't follow protocol, or they didn't tell you that they had, a history of whatever, diabetes, high blood pressure, right? And because they didn't disclose that, then you perform the treatment and now they had some kind of bad reaction, or maybe they have a reaction or they're allergic to latex or the lidocaine or whatever the case is, right? Again, the goal here is to protect us. We don't want problems. We don't want any unnecessary issues. We don't want a client coming back to us and saying, hey, you said I could do this and I did this and now there's an issue. Well, no, Susie, I told you you need to make sure to refrain from exercise for 24 hours, or you need to make sure you drink, X amount of water per day, or you need to refrain from alcohol for 3 days, whatever it is. I'm just kind of coming up with some different examples. Like, it's not only to protect you from making sure that the client is following protocol, but you have a clear understanding of exactly what you're treating them with, what their medical history is, and so on and so forth. So liability waiver is extremely important. If anything, I almost feel like that's like one of the most important next to the medical history, right? Number 5 is going to be a privacy policy. So privacy policy, I'm sure we've all heard of it. We've seen them on people's websites and things of that nature. But to give you a better understanding, like, a privacy policy is going to let you know, like, hey, this is how I store the information. This is what I do with the information, especially in today's digital age, right? For me, when I had consent forms and I was performing services with clients, I held them on a platform, on a portal. So I can't remember the platform off the top of my head, but basically I would develop the consent forms within the portal. And then I had a link, when a client would book an appointment, and then they would fill out the consent form. If a client came in and they hadn't filled out the consent form, I would have them fill out the consent form on my iPad or their phone or something like that prior to me performing the treatment. And so with a privacy policy, it is letting people know, again, this is where I'm storing the information. This is how I'm storing the information. This is what I'm doing with the information. Your information is not sold, all of those kind of things. Again, everybody has heard of a privacy policy. We've all seen privacy policy on websites. It's mandatory for us to have one, but maybe you didn't quite know what a privacy policy was or what the intended purpose of a privacy policy was. So again, when it comes to consent forms, I feel like it is do or die. And when I say that, I mean, like, it's absolutely mandatory. Like, I 100% did not perform services on somebody unless they filled out a consent form. And you can make them as simple as possible. You can make them as complex as possible. You can have clients fill out multiple forms. In our courses, specifically, I provide you with a number of consent forms, and those could range from video consent, photograph consent, consent to treat, the medical history, an intake form, a treatment history, where you keep track of like what you do on the client and things of that nature. So all of our courses include those kind of things, right? And again, you can, condense some of this stuff and put it all into one. You can have multiple, you can print them out, you can carry them, like I said, on a platform, whatever you so desire, however you want to do it. But keep in mind, 100%, I am going to drive this home. It is imperative for you to make sure that your clients have this information, are signing off on this information. They have a clear understanding of what is being done. And again, it's almost like a contract. They're saying, hey, I don't have any medical history. I'm clear. I'm good to go. I'm healthy. There are no issues. I'm not allergic to anything, so on and so forth, right? And then based on that information, you're saying, okay, I'm giving you the clear to go ahead and perform this treatment. You've given me consent to perform this treatment. This is how I house my information that you're going to give to me. Again, this is kind of everything that I've just talked about in a nutshell. So, to close this episode, I just want to, bring it back to number 1, making sure your consent forms have personal information included. Number 2, we want to make sure the medical history, right? And what is their background. Number 3 is going to be consent to treat. Number 4 is liability waiver. And number 5 is going to be the privacy policy. Okay? So I hope this information is helpful to you guys. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and your evening. Until next time, I'll see you. That's a wrap for today's Beauty Business Breakthroughs. I hope you found these insights valuable and actionable for your beauty business. Remember, success in this industry is within your reach. If you're hungry for more and ready to take your beauty business to the next level, consider joining our Get Fully Booked Accelerator program. We are dedicated to helping beauty professionals like you achieve extraordinary success with strategies that can take your business to 10K per month and beyond. Simply send us a direct message on Instagram, Luxe Beauty and Body Co., with the word success, and we'll provide you with all of the details on how you can be a part of this game-changing program. Your journey to a thriving beauty business starts now. Thank you again for tuning in, and until next time, stay inspired, stay motivated, and keep making those beauty business breakthroughs.